Good evening, you're watching This Week, a weekly news review program. I'm your host, Anar Gamatar. Each year, the Russian government grants around 15,000 scholarships to international students. Last year, 550 Mongolian students received scholarships. In 2022, the Russian government will grant scholarships to 600 Mongolian students.
Applications for the Russian Federation scholarship must be submitted on educationinrussia.com for October 31st.
The Russian government has increased the number of annual scholarships for Mongolian citizens to 600 this year. Mongolian students can study in any city or at any university for any major they want. They have the opportunity to study for free on a scholarship from the Russian government.
Applicants will be selected based on their GPA, their achievements, and participation in international conferences and Olympiads. The entire registration and selection process will be done online.
The governors of Mongolia and northern provinces discussed the implementation of green development policies and issues requiring urgent action during an event held in collaboration with the Asian Development Bank.
The discussion included risk posed by environmental degradation, pollution, and exposure to natural hazards. This event was the ADB's fourth out of 5 regional consultations covering 5 provinces with diverse and active economic landscapes: Булган, Дархан, Ул Орхон, Сэлэнг, and Хусгал.
These discussions will help guide many future dialogues on how ADB can support Mongolia to achieve inclusive and sustainable development. ADB's newly launched country partnership strategy for Mongolia highlights strengthening rural and urban linkages as one of the priority areas of operation. Development of larger secondary cities like Darkhan and Irtnet will help decongest Ulaanbaatar and drive competitiveness and diversification across the country, as we heard from the province governors today.
The event started with virtual site visits to education, infrastructure, and trade facilitation projects that have demonstrated economic, social, and environmental benefits. During the second part of the event, representatives of central and local governments discussed promoting economic diversification in the region to support the creation of jobs and income opportunities for local residents. A panel discussion focused on the government's green development vision for the region, the implementation of priority investment projects, and ADB's role in advancing rural development. Participants noted that while increasing productivity is key to the successful implementation of green development policies, environmental degradation, pollution, and exposure to natural hazards also required urgent attention. The north region of Mongolia features rich, arable land fed by big rivers, scenic landscapes, accommodating big herds and nomadic lifestyles, and the largest freshwater lake in the country. Province centers in the region have the infrastructure and urban service base to provide advantages for business development.
On Monday, a parliamentary by-election was held in electoral districts in number 18 in Khinty province and number 28 in Ulaanbaatar's Sangkherchen district. Voter turnouts in both the electoral districts were less than 50% of the total number of the voters. Details are in the following report. On Monday, a parliamentary by-election was held in electoral districts number 18 in Khinty province and number 28 in Ulaanbaatar's Sangkherchen district. Voter turnouts in both the electoral districts were less than 50% of the total number of voters. In accordance with the election legislation, the General Election Commission has decided to schedule repolling for this Saturday, October 16th. Out of the 148 horos of 2 electoral districts, voter turnout reached 50% in only 17 horos, 1 in Sangkherchen district, 1 and 16 in Khinty province. Repolling will be organized in the 131 horos with low voter turnout. On Monday night, the preliminary results of the by-election were broadcast live. The votes counted by voting machines were immediately double-checked by hand counting in all horos, with no miscounting recorded. The budget for the by-election was 2.2 billion MNT, with 1.8 billion MNT budget for General Election Commission activities and the remaining 400 million for other expenses. The repolling will be held within the allocated by-election budget. Votes received through repolling this Saturday will be added to the current ballot count to involve those who did not cast their votes in the first round of polling. Repolling will only take place once, and there is no required percentage of participation.
Mongolian People's Party member Somyawatar was elected to parliament in 2020, representing the Songkhan district alongside Member of Parliament Uchrut and Anojan. Somyawatar resigned from the legislature on October 23, 2020, and took office as governor of the capital city and mayor of Ulaanbaatar on October 26, 2020. Current president of Mongolia, Khurelsukh, was also elected to parliament in 2020, but his victory in the 2021 presidential election necessitated the holding of a by-election.
Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs Mukhjin met with the ambassador of Canada to Mongolia, Catherine Ivkov, on October 8th. During their meeting, they discussed the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries, which will take place in 2023, including preparations and events to be organized.
Ambassador Ivkov also presented some cooperation initiatives proposed by the Canadian government. Both sides are committed to enhancing bilateral cooperation as well as promoting collaboration with the United Nations and other international and regional organizations on issues such as regional stability, human rights, climate change, gender equality, and peacekeeping. Earlier this year, during an intergovernmental roundtable meeting, the two countries agreed to further encourage bilateral trade and to cooperate on improving Mongolia's investment environment, in addition to promoting transparency, protecting intellectual property rights, and preventing corruption matters related to international trade and investment. Canada will continue to cooperate to support Mongolia's progress in meeting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and achieving tangible results through Canada's International Assistance Program, with a focus on inclusive governance, gender equality, economic development, and environmental sustainability. Mongolia has invited a Canadian government delegation to attend a 10th roundtable meeting to be held in Ulaanbaatar in 2023.
Mongolian artists who live in the USA have been performing at the traditional culture festival since 2005. In addition, this year, Mongolian artists held 20-minute independent performance to promote Mongolian history, beautiful nature, and culture. Mongolian artists who live in the USA have been performing at the traditional cultural festival since 2005. In addition, this year, Mongolian artists held 20-minute independent performance to promote Mongolian history, beautiful nature, and culture.
Organizers said that the Mongolian town was temporarily set up at the National Mall in Washington, D.C., and provided great opportunity to promote art and culture of Mongolia to the guests.
People visiting this exhibition were very curious about Mongolia. After the festival, the guests were very impressed and satisfied. They said that they will possibly travel to Mongolia. In that sense, we are very happy that we had the opportunity to promote our culture and art. I think our mission is to attract tourists to our country, to support local tourism and become a bridge connecting the country's people. And this event is an effective way to promote Mongolia abroad.
Ban Hoik said that the festival was organized under the theme Mask to remind people the importance of wearing face masks during the pandemic. He has created some ritual masks and has been touring with some ritual dance performance in the United States since 2009, and also his masks are on display at the Chinggis Khan Mobile Museum opened at the exhibition. Artists representing 30 countries took part in the festival, promoting their country's art and culture, and more than 20,000 people visited the festival. Participants noted that the cultural events organized abroad promote Mongolia to foreigners, but also helps to preserve Mongolian culture for children born and raised in the United States. Mongolian cultural envoy to the United States is also planning to organize many different sports and art events in the future.
The regular cabinet meeting was held on October 30th and a number of decisions were taken. Notably, a working group was established to intensify trade and economic cooperation with China.
The Prime Minister of Mongolia, Oyo Erten, held a virtual meeting with the Prime Minister of the People's Republic of China, Li Keqiang, on October 12. The outcome of the meeting was further discussed during the government session, and it was decided to establish a working group that will intensify Mongolia-China trade cooperation. The working group will be chaired by the Minister of Finance, Joklang, while the Minister of Road and Transport Development, Khaltar, the Minister of Mining and Heavy Industry, Yondong, the Minister of Health, Inkbolt, the Mayor of Ulaanbaatar, Somyawatar, and other government officials have become members of this working group. Javlan, chairman of the working group and Minister of Finance, was instructed to report back on the progress and results of the working group to the regular cabinet meeting on a monthly basis.
A children's folk art festival was held in Stockholm. The festival, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary, was successfully organized by the Tuxbillicht Mongolian Language Center.
The festival was co-organized and supported by the Embassy of Mongolia in the Kingdom of Sweden. About 70 talented children competed in 4 categories at the Perfect Mongolia Folk Art Festival, and the winners of the Grand Prix were announced. Girle, cultural envoy of Mongolia to Germany and head of the Mongolian Steppe Agency, Sanjajau, a lecturer at the Franz Schubert Conservatory of Music in Vienna, Austria, were invited to judge the festival.
When I was asked to judge and take part at this folk art festival, I accepted this invitation with pleasure. Children taking part at the festival are very familiar with Mongolian culture and traditions. As a cultural envoy of Mongolia, I hope similar festivals will be organized in other countries as well.
I was happy to be a judge at this festival. I'm feeling proud that Mongolian children are learning about their traditions and cultural heritage. In addition, I want to congratulate the organizers with successfully staging this festival.
Mongolian folk songs, Homi throat singing, and national music were performed at the festival. Winners of the festival and dance troops Happy Dance and Blue Mongolia were awarded the Grand Prix and Horsehead Fiddles. The Perfect Mongolia Festival set to expand from next year and to be organized in 2023 in Germany under the name of Euro 2023.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Byelection, held a meeting with her counterpart of Belarus, Vladimir Mackay, on the sidelines of the 6th meeting of foreign ministers of CICA.
At the 6th ministerial meeting of the Conference on Interaction and Confidence Building Measures in Asia, taking place in Nur-Sultan, Kazakhstan, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Byelection, is holding meetings with her counterpart from Belarus. At the meeting, Minister Byelection said that the government of Mongolia is paying attention to expanding Mongolia-Belarus relations. Mongolia's ambassador to Belarus has recently presented his letter of credence to the president of Belarus, Lukashenko, added the minister. Expressing his satisfaction with the opening of the Embassy of Mongolia in Belarus, Minister Vladimir Mackay highlighted that there is an opportunity to further expand bilateral trade and economic cooperation, aside from cooperating in the educational sector and providing scholarships to Mongolian students. The two sides expressed their interest in strengthening political relations, increasing frequency of high-level visits, and bolstering cooperation in the agriculture and transport sectors. During the meeting, two sides agreed that the sides would continue focusing on agricultural and road transport projects being implemented in accordance with the General Export Loan Agreement between the governments of both countries. Mongolia and the Republic of Belarus established diplomatic relations on January 24, 1992. The ministers also exchanged their views regarding the events to be organized for the 30th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations that will be celebrated in 2022.
On October 13th, the Minister of Foreign Affairs held official talks with the acting Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan, Rakhmetulin, as part of her visit.
The two sides assessed the current state of relations and cooperation between Mongolia and Kazakhstan and discussed further developing relations in various sectors, such as politics, trade and economy, transport and logistics, agriculture, education, tourism, international and regional cooperation. Views on practices being implemented in both countries for economic recovery and overcoming the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic were also discussed. Mongolia expressed an interest in expanding bilateral trade by increasing the supply of meat and meat products being exported to Kazakhstan. Furthermore, a request was put forward to create an active cooperation between the two countries, veterinary and quarantine organizations, as well as monetizing and utilizing the geographic location connecting the continents of Asia and Europe as landlocked countries. The acting Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan, Rakhmetulin, also put forward a suggestion to accelerate the project in developing a roadmap for creating joint tourism routes between the two countries. Moreover, it was also suggested to renew the Intergovernmental Agreement on supporting investment in the framework of strengthening the legal environment for cooperation. Following the talks, the 2021 to 2024 Plan for Cooperation between the foreign ministries of Mongolia and Kazakhstan was signed. This is the first visit by a foreign minister of Mongolia since the establishment of diplomatic relations between Mongolia and Kazakhstan in 1992.
Australian Volunteers Program have supported a wide range of Mongolian partner organizations since 1998. This year, Australian Volunteers Program has organized a workshop to prevent sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment since June and held its final session on Thursday. The Australian Volunteers Program has a long history in Mongolia. Since 1998, over 300 volunteers have been mobilized through the program. Every year, the AVP supports the deployment of around 30 skilled Australians to undertake volunteer assignments aimed at improving the capacity of partner organizations in sectors of high priority to the Australian and Mongolian government. In 2019 and 2020, the Australian Volunteers Program in Mongolia worked with 6 new partner organizations and continued to support development in Ulaanbaatar City and Umnqo Province. The majority of Australian volunteers supported government bodies and international and local NGOs, predominantly in the health, government and education sectors. Volunteers supported the delivery of the Australian government's 8 priorities in Mongolia, including supporting the health sector, improving education, eliminating violence against women and working to achieve gender equality. Mr. Dave Preston, First Secretary of the Australian Embassy in Mongolia, attended the workshop and gave the opening speech.
Well, today's workshop is the third in a series of workshops that the Volunteers Program has been putting on, starting in 2019 with Diversity and Inclusive Program. Then we've had another one on preventing, well, today's is about preventing sexual harassment and preventing violence in the workplace, but also ensuring that child protection is another area which is really important to make sure that the rights of children are protected. The program will provide support to the partner organisations for implementing these policies as parts of their programs as they go on, and there may well be follow-up workshops later on as the need arises. We would normally have 30 volunteers each year, but of course COVID's made that a bit difficult, but they've adapted well and have sort of gone to online learning, and hopefully now that the Australian travel is starting to open up, we can get volunteers back here to Mongolia.
Sexual exploitation, abuse and sexual harassment is a violation of basic human rights. AVA held the workshop with the aim to providing partner organizations a safe and trusted environment that safeguards everyone from sexual exploitation, abuse and sexual harassment, including beneficiary communities, workers, program participants and partner organizations. The first Grand Slam since the Tokyo Olympics are taking place on October 16th through 17th, and 288 judokas from 47 countries will compete in this competition. 23 judokas from Mongolia will compete in the France capital. The Tokyo Olympics ended in August, and since then the 2024 Paris Olympic cycle has begun. Last month's Zagreb Grand Prix was attended by a number of athletes in the adult category. For example, Tata Grigashvili from Georgia, Arman Adamian from Russia and Andrei Leski from Slovenia. Olympic and world medalists such as Kasim Matias, Tsohtwater, Soichi Hashimoto, Barbara Kmatik, Yoko Ono and Ryuju Nagayama are participating in this year's Grand Slam. The Grand Slams of Baku and Abu Dhabi are scheduled for November. Many Mongolian champions came to the fore from the Grand Slam in Paris. For example, in 2012, Nemochir, Tsahanbatar, Boltwater and Tumurhulu won in the men's category. In 2011, Bundma won the men's category and merited athlete Oruntsig won in the women's category. 23 judokas will compete in Paris from Mongolia. 13 men and 10 women will compete in 14 different weight categories. Well, that's all for this week. We'll see you next week with more news and updates. Have a nice weekend. Goodbye.